First off, welcome. Really appreciate this awesome turnout. My name is Ryan Long with Keller Williams Realty. I'm a real estate agent in town. Run the group with Jesse where did he go? Jesse Brown, still getting some chairs for us. Thanks, Jesse. There is a sign-in sheet kind of going around, and if you put your name on there, I promise I won't spam you, but I send an email reminder every month and a text message reminder every month, but if you don't want those, just tell me to stop. So that'd be great to get on the sign-in list. We've got a little QR code. Maybe we'll pass that around too, but if you guys want to donate to the cause, it's a little bit more expensive to have a great venue like this. So we're open to donations, but it's a free event, so don't worry if you can't donate, but $5 would be awesome and help us cover the costs for putting this on. And let's see here. Other announcements, again, we always meet the second Tuesday of the month. We're the next 2 months, so August and September, we are committed to being here again. So the rest of summer, we're planning to do this, and I haven't got speakers lined up, but we're working on it for the next 2, and I'll make some announcements soon. What else? We're talking about having a couple socials. Last summer we did a couple just like come hang out and talk kind of thing, more just networking or just chatting real estate like all of us love to do. So we'll do those the 4th. I'll put them on Facebook group, but the 4th Wednesday of the month is when we did it last year and the next couple months, and we'll go to the barn in Albany and kind of switch up locations. So look for announcements about that. Any questions about that? All right. We're going to have an announcement in just a second about State Bill 611. At the beginning of the meetings, I normally just do a real quick market update. Since we're at the beginning of the month, we just get the statistics from last month and what's going on. So if you have one of these, I'll kind of explain a few things on our market update, and really focused on the Willamette Valley. So the first page, the larger page, is what's going on mainly in Lynn, Benton, Marion, and Polk counties. So Corvallis, Albany, and kind of Salem metro area is the focus on that. You can see the median sales price for the 521 closed sales in June of 2023, 435. What's interesting, and a couple things that I kind of watch is what I think is the best metric for demand and really what buyers are doing is that list price received. And so that's actually showing the list price to sales price ratio, and so we creep back up above 100%. You can see that it obviously sloped way down. A year ago it was like 104% across the valley, and now it's slowly creeping back up to just over 100%. So it's again a seller's market across the valley. On the back side, I've got Corvallis and Albany because a lot of our members are focused here. A couple things that to point out are, again, that list price and received on both of them have, it came down sharply a year ago, but now we're trending back up. And Corvallis seems to, as I'm watching, the different markets, mainly in the valley here, what's going on, it seems like it's still kind of the hottest market, but that's really because the story is that you always hear there's no inventory, and really that seems to be true for the most part. And I'm going to give you my little thought on that, is that it seems like people are fighting over the nice homes. So it's a great market if you want to flip properties, find something that you can update a little bit and sell or rent out. It seems like people aren't doing those little upgrade, downgrade kind of purchases like they did a few years ago, because it doesn't make sense to get rid of their 3.5% interest rates on their mortgages, right? So we all kind of understand that. There's that rate lock effect is real, which is keeping almost no homes on the market. And so, but there's still buyers that need to move to town or, that are moving around. And those buyers seem to prefer the upgraded, updated houses. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And so there's still some pretty significant bidding wars. I'm seeing sometimes 10 or 15%, but it's real common to see 5 offers right now in our market for those updated homes, and 5 to 10% over. So thank you so much. Was this your?
So this is what I want to do. I want to make it really clear that everybody that came tonight, if you have specific questions about how you can make money and build wealth in real estate that I don't get to, you come talk to me afterwards. Okay, I'll stay until every question's answered before I drive home. I usually go through a quick slideshow of ADU 101, But what I don't want to do is waste time talking about things I think you want to know and missing out on things that you need to know or things that are directly going to affect your family and your first house or your first or 20th rental, right? Who knows what an ADU is? Raise your hand. Okay, what does the A stand for? Accessory. That's a trick question, and most people think it's additional. Accessory. So I'm going to focus on that a lot tonight. I think we're going to be changing the definition at some point to another or additional because we're allowing more cities, especially in our state, are allowing us to build more and more and more units. But right now we're going to focus on ADUs, the A being accessory to a primary dwelling. So just keep that in your mind throughout the whole talk. We're not talking about multiple units in a multifamily zone. We're not talking about multiple cottages in a high density area. We're looking at like, how do we buy single family houses in the best possible neighborhood with the best possible debt and leverage that into small multifamily and crush the competition. Like that's what I focus on and that's what I want to teach you guys. Are there any questions so far? And I'll take questions throughout this. Super informal. I'm totally normal, totally approachable. If anybody here knows my story, I grew up super poor, single mom, Section 8 housing, bouncing around from place to place, always getting screwed by shitty landlords. And I always told myself, if I'm ever on the other side of this, I'm going to change housing. So my overall goal is to build as much housing as possible until I die, and then I'm going to give it all away. And my kids aren't going to get shit. They're going to have to work. So true story. That's really where it is. I do planning, designing, financing, building, and holding ADUs. I have a general contractor's license, but I don't build for other people. People see me on social media building, and they're like, come build me an ADU for $100 a square foot. I just do my own stuff. So I can't build for you, but I will help you. Everything that I talk about, all my trade secrets, I give away for free on Instagram and on YouTube, so follow me there. I don't have anything to sell. I don't have a course. I'm not going to try to like sell you a boxed up ADU that you can put in your backyard. So really quickly, the why. The screen isn't great. This is basically my dream. So this is an old guy. I was driving home from the mountain several years back, and there was this old guy with a guitar and an old beat-up van on the side of the mountain. And I drove up to him, and I stuck my head out the window with my camera, and he nodded his head. And I took this picture, and this is my vision board. So every time I was telling Kyle, a good friend of mine right here, on my way up here, I was getting emails and text messages from my lawyer, from my surveyor, from my neighbor. I'm doing this development. Everybody wants to kick you in the balls when you're trying to build housing. And so I have this screensaver and I have this vision board of what it is that I really want, which is I just want to be in the mountains. I want to run and ski. I have to remind myself of that. That's why I always start my slideshow with it. It has nothing to do with building. It's like, how do I get through the hard times? Got some wind issues here. So house hacking. Who knows what a house hack is? Okay, everybody, right? We're using a primary mortgage, and there's some part of that unit that's providing income to us. I talked to 3 or 4 different house hackers while we were here. Everybody knows what an ADU is. Who in here has an ADU? Okay, we've got 2. Who has an illegal ADU? Okay, that's how I started. Okay, illegal ADUs, we call them legacy ADUs. Those are okay. In fact, that's one of my favorite strategies is to actually look for, on the MLS, houses that realtors, I'm going to pick on you, you suck, but realtors want to like market price and sell houses with illegal ADUs as houses with ADUs. So we look for these houses with illegal ADUs in areas where we can get the ADU permitted, and then we go ask for a huge reduction because we become experts in the local planning code, right? So we know that ADUs build wealth long-term by cash flow, we get appreciation, we get pay down. It's all the stuff that we get from any other piece of real estate. Okay, is everybody following? Everybody's kind of glazed over already, like bobbing heads. Okay. Market rate rentals is what I focus on. I don't want to go too deep into midterm stuff, but a lot of people are building ADUs, especially in California right now, and they're trying to get around SB 8 and SB 9 to use them as short-term rentals. I think the short-term rental market has had quite a bit of downward pressure since I put this slide in 2 years ago. But I just always remind people, especially in our state, where we have awesome legislation on infill housing, that it's for needed workforce market rate housing, not for short-term rentals. So if you're gonna get on the bus of the ADU build and you're down at your county or you're in the city planning office, just don't ever say short-term rental. Like everybody hates it, legislators hate it, city councils hate it, unless they have them. Most planning commissioners, most legislators all hate ADUs, or short-term rental ADUs, unless they have them. So just be really wary of using those terms. I'm going to talk about planning. Yes, ma'am. 30 days. Yeah, 30 days is the national language. So 29 days or less would be a short-term rental. Midterm, corporate housing, travel nurses is usually 30 days to 6 months. 13 weeks is the most common stay in the hospital system. And then long-term rental I would classify as 6 months or over. But for short-term, just make sure it's over 30 days. Everybody get that one? So planning, designing, financing, building, and holding ADUs is kind of my strategy. That's what I teach. That's what I preach. That's what people usually call me about. I accidentally got into being, I wouldn't say the national expert in all phases of ADU, but I think I've just been doing them longer than anybody else. They were legally allowed in Ashland, Oregon in the 90s. And in 1996, my high school woodshop teacher handpicked a group of us. We thought we were special. Really, we were like the misfits that he knew weren't going to go to college. And we built an illegal ADU for another one of our teachers. So I've pretty much been doing ADU stuff in one firm or another for 27 and a half years. And that's where a lot of this opinion and experience, if you'd call it, has come from. So that's kind of the backstory. The planning, this is the most important slide. It's kind of hard to see, but if there's any slide that I would harp on, or I don't need anybody to take a picture, you guys can all have this slideshow. Send me an email, I'll send you the deck. But the most important slide, in my opinion, is right here. It is all about planning. Okay, how many people have seen somebody post something on Instagram about a zoning code? How many people have ever stayed up on a Saturday night and read your local comprehensive plan or your housing needs analysis? Okay, the few people in here that are wealthy, okay, like 3 people. This is the rule book of how we make money in real estate, and nobody gives it any attention. I mean, how many house flippers are in here that have flipped 600 houses and have never pulled one permit? Like, if we want to build a business and we want to be good, not just developers, if we want to be good investors, we have to know the rules. So get to know the decision makers, get to know the people that write the rule book, get a seat at the table, join your local planning commission. That's where I really learned the most I could ever have learned about planning was I took a 4-year commitment on a planning commission as a volunteer, and we revamped the code in our local city. So the planning and zoning is really where all the rules are made. I would highly suggest that you check it out. It's not a lot of work. If you're into, somebody asked me about condoization. Somebody asked me about fee simple lot partitioning. Somebody else asked me about House Bill 2001, duplex, triplex, quadplex on any single family zone. Go get the code in your local city, read it, go make friends, or at least introduce yourself to the planners, the decision makers. It doesn't take a lot of work to become an expert in planning. So that's that slide, most important one. Sorry, guys. The different types of ADUs, so we can do attached ADUs. That can be a garage conversion, it can be a basement conversion, it could be an attic. We can do bump out ADUs, we can do the internal carve out ADU. Is there any first-time home buyers here who doesn't have their first house yet? Raise your hand and don't be afraid. Like, I would be looking for a single family house, 3-2 or 4-3, where you can take the master bedroom and easily convert it into a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, or basically a studio. And then you would have, for all intents and purposes, a duplex with the attached ADU strategy. That's the most affordable way to get on the property ladder, in my opinion, all day long. They're really easy to look for those kinds of houses. There's very little competition, and you can supercharge your investing career by not living for free in this market with these rates, but living for cheaper than you're going to rent while you're building equity. Just try to buy in the best spot. Any questions so far? It is. It's the house hack. I mean, I would not buy any house that I can't convert part of the house to a second unit and build another unit in the backyard. Like, that's my own personal criteria. But I think it's an amazing, I mean, how many investors in here, BlackRock included, want just a duplex? Why would you not buy a duplex in a better neighborhood with better schools and lower density? That's what we get when we take a single family house in a lower density area and turn it into a duplex. Okay, so yes, for sure, that's an incredible long-term strategy, whether you're buying it with 20% down investment grade products or you're house hacking and moving into it as working class. And I talk about that a lot. As like a blue collar person, like, we can look wealthy or we can be wealthy. It's hard to do both, especially for the first 20 years. After 20 years and you get off the hockey stick and you're up on the high side, you can do that. But the house hack on that duplex conversion is probably the most underrated, underused strategy to get into real estate. Yes, sir? No. Yeah, I wouldn't have said reduce, I don't think. Permit it. So everything that we do that I talk about is all permitted.
Oh, he's talking about getting a price reduction on.
Oh, yeah, great. So if you have a realtor, and please don't raise your hand if you're one of those realtors, but if you have a realtor that they get this listing, they're super excited because it's a great little charming house in the back, there's a little guest house, they think it's an ADU. They list it as an ADU, they try to sell it to you as an ADU, you get it under contract. What's the first thing you do when you're buying a house, you have a signed contract to buy a house that you think has an ADU? I don't care if you're the buyer or the realtor, what's the first thing you do? I'll buy you a drink if you get it right, come on. Check it, yeah. What's that?
Title report.
Title report, that's a good one. Check on the permitting, that's a beer. You call the city, it's not just checking on permitting, is this permitted? Does this second unit have a certificate of occupancy? Period. It's not a second unit unless it has a legal certificate of occupancy. There are some gray areas. If it doesn't have a kitchen, if it's a detached legal dwelling, it may just be permitted, but we're always looking, if it's an accessory dwelling unit, it's a dwelling, which means it has a bathroom and a kitchen. It's got a range and a hood, not just a hot top, right? So we're looking for a certificate of occupancy. I get, I don't know, maybe 3 to 5 calls a week of somebody that says, Derek, I just bought a house that had an ADU. Come to find out it doesn't have an ADU. What do I do? And I'm like, the city has you by the short hairs. You didn't do your due diligence. Like, you have to take accountability. You messed up. So certificate of occupancy is what classifies an ADU from whatever the realtor calls it. I love realtors. Okay, I'm not really meaning to pick on you. I see this a lot, especially in our state. Our state's the worst at it because we were first to market and there's so many ADUs. The detached ADU is the bread and butter of my strategy. It's what I like. I'm going to harp on this real quick. I think that a tenant, coming from a tenancy into a development mind, I always have the end user first. I always think about the tenant and what they want and what they need. And when they look for a property, I'll get you, ma'am, they want exactly what we want, in my opinion, okay? In this order, they want location, they want privacy, and they want amenities. And that's why the ADU strategy can supercharge your real estate portfolio when it comes to small multifamily. Because again, we're buying in single family, low density, nicer neighborhoods. That's a prejudiced term, but it is what it is, right? And we're building detached ADUs, so we're in a good area, good location, and we're getting privacy because we don't have any shared walls. So there's a lot of downward pressure on the multifamily market right now. If you track any, I think Ken McElroy is probably one of the best content creators out there for the multifamily space. If you look at statistics on new starts, if you look at permitting, there's this huge influx of multifamily nationwide that's coming. And there's going to be a lot of downward pressure on B, C, and A class multifamily. If there's a lot of downward pressure on 1 and 2 bedroom places that have a neighbor above you, below you, beside you, or any of the one, or a standalone unit that's similar square footage for similar price, what are you going to choose every time? The privacy, the standalone, no shared wall, ADU. That's what an ADU detached, the biggest advantage an ADU has, I think, that's detached is all its competitors are multifamily that share a wall. So that's why I think it's worth paying 30 to 40% more to build that detached ADU because it's going to drive such a higher rent. It's going to be super high demand and very low supply. So just keep that in mind. Again, know your market. In my market, we're allowed to build 2, but 1 has to be attached. So it's like, Derek, why do you say you always build an attached, but you always build a detached? Well, we're always doing both. So look for both if your market allows it. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, great question. She says, hey, my county, Benton, will allow you to do 900 square feet and a 300 square foot garage, but what if I want a 3-car garage and the ADU? Can I do that and convert the space later, basically? Wink, wink, I get it. Yes, that's a great question for 2 points. 1 point is every city is going to have a cap on the size. Common language is 800 square feet or 75% of the primary house, whichever's smaller. If it's 900 square feet, but you really want to build a big one because whatever reason, you need a 1,300 square foot ADU, you do what we call mechanical rooms, or you do a bonus room. It's unconditioned space. The language in code is gross habitable living area. That's living space, that's square footage, that's what you're getting taxed on, appraised on, that's your square footage price on. But you could build a 900 square foot ADU and then downstairs you have a 1,000 square foot mechanical room that has your washer and dryer and your on-demand hot water or your on-demand water heater. And it also happens to act really well as a big family room after you get final inspection. Okay, yes, you can do that. Again, I always say permit everything, do everything by the books. There's plenty of money to be made in the lines. And I will mention real quick on the 900 foot, because that's a good question. The number one mistake I see people make, they call me, they say, Derek, I live in Contra Costa County. We can build a 1,000 square foot ADU. I'm building a 1,000 square footer. And then they're bummed that it's $500 a square foot, and they're like, how do I cut costs? I promise you the number one mistake that people make in most markets, except for beachfront in San Diego, that's my only exception, is they build too much ADU. They over-design and overbuild, usually too big. So if you have a super custom, call it apartment, call it attached, detached, whatever, a nice custom, new, brand new finishes, 1-1 unit in Corvallis, downtown, what does it rent for? $1,200. Okay, let's say it's 500 square feet. It rents for $1,200 bucks. Okay, if we build a 1,000 square foot 2-1, does it rent for $2,400? No way. No way, it doesn't. So it's scaling up with cost, and it doesn't scale up proportionally with return. So most people, right now we're building ADUs. An ADU to have built is going to start at $225 a square foot on a build-ready lot minus fees. And if you want a 500 square footer, it's going to be half the cost of a 1,000 square footer. Literally half of the cost. So don't always think, and I'm not picking on you, ma'am, but don't think just because I can build a 900 square footer, don't think you have to go to the max, especially if you're looking for a return. If you're a family of 3 and you're going to downsize into the ADU and rent out your house and live rent-free, and you have a child and you need a 3-2, you're going to max out your ADU. But most of the time when you're going for yield, smaller is better. My favorite ADU is 524 square feet. So 1 bedroom, 1 bath with a loft. It rents for $1,500. I could never in a million years rent a 2-bedroom for $3,000 in my market, ever. And these things fly off the shelf. So bigger isn't better when it comes to building an ADU in most cases. Like I said, there's a couple exceptions. Garage conversions. Does anybody have a garage conversion ADU? So these are really cool. Tell us about it. Okay, he's got an unpermitted garage conversion that's paying half his mortgage and he loves it. Okay, garage conversions are rad. California is like blowing the tops off of garage conversions right now. They're not my favorite personally because I like to start with a certain criteria. I like vaulted ceilings, open spaces. Does anybody in here follow me on Instagram? Okay, feel free to. I post stuff probably a few times a week. We're building a couple ADUs right now. And you'll see the kind of design we always do. But the way that you make a small house not feel small is you do a vaulted ceiling. And when you convert a garage that has a concrete floor and usually an 8 or 9 foot ceiling with trusses, you don't get to do that. So they don't feel as big. They're a little bit damp. They're not my favorite, but they're a great spot. Another thing that I don't like about garage conversions is everybody forgets how much stuff they have until they have to move all their stuff out of the garage to convert it to housing. So think about that. Then we have the above garage ADU, which is another one of my favorites. All my attached ADUs that I build are garage over ADU. So I do an attached ADU with a garage that's attached to the main house with a breezeway. So they don't share a wall, but they still meet the attachment rule in my city. And you can also meet the parking standard and have a room to put all your stuff while you have space above it. And they're good for teenagers. I've got teenage kids that live in some of my ADU above garage units. Any questions thus far? Okay, yeah. Illegal garage conversion ADU guy, go. I'm just kidding, dude. No hate. Yeah, great question. He asked, is it cheaper to do a prefabricated, manufactured home as opposed to a detached? And it can be. And that's a great point because Oregon is one of the few states in the country that by state law says that a manufactured house is a dwelling. So they can't, except for in historic districts, certain language in siting and design, they can't say you can't put a manufactured home in pretty much any state single-family lot. So yes, you can buy comparable priced, off-site built manufactured home. The benefit of a manufactured home is that it has a HUD stamp, so it doesn't have to meet all the BS requirements of your city. It doesn't need to be solar ready for my California friends. But the major expense in development is the, really following International Code Council standards on how we build, which says we have to be bolted down to a perimeter concrete foundation. So you're going to have to either still pour a mono slab or a footing stem wall foundation, and you're going to have to do all the site work: water, sewer, power, gas, cable out there, stormwater, all that big, huge hole in your backyard. Whether you build it in place or you build an offsite, you buy a Clayton home or something. It can be cheaper in some cases if you're in a really expensive market and you have really good access, or if you have a manufactured home park where you have pads that already have hookups and you can literally back a Clayton home in and drop it off. I tell people I don't like them personally. I think that you can build a 412 roof, rectangular box. Just think, like, what does a manufactured home look like? You can build that really simple same design for cheaper on site than you can. The advantage of building them off site is noise, time, neighbors. There's one product, I'm not going to plug this guy only because I like his product. There's a guy up in Battleground, Washington, Wolf Industries. He's the only person I've seen that has a pretty good modular product. They're not a certified manufactured home. He doesn't have a HUD stamp, but they've built like 300 of them and shipped them all over the country. He's got 100 5-star reviews on Google. I've met him over the phone. I was a little skeptical. I'm like, no. And then I looked at his product, looked at what he's doing at his factory, and like, this is a pretty good deal. I am actually considering him. I'm building a 6-unit cottage cluster, and he's got a nice 500 square foot unit for $100,000. They do all the permitting for you, and you just have to have the foundation and the rough ends ready, and then they bring it down, they hook it up, they bolt it down, they plumb it all in. So that's the only exception, but I still think we can build cheaper in place. But great question.
At some point later on, can you talk about your cottage cluster project also?
Yeah, I'll touch on cottage clusters. This is my bread and butter. This is an old, ugly house we bought right at COVID. We signed on this the day that the governor shut down Oregon, declared emergency. I was like, this is a mistake. What am I doing? Ended up being one of the best projects we've ever done. It came with a bunch of land that led to 6 brand new units. But it was a big, ugly house with the wing on the left. It's hard to see, but we took that one wing and we converted that. It was a extra dining room and a family room, and converted it to a 1-1 apartment for $30,000. For $30,000, we had a legal duplex on a house that nobody wanted. It's by far the easiest strategy. Buy a big single-family house and turn it into a duplex all day long. If you can buy the 3.2 or the 4.3, the master bathroom is really key. The toilet, the 3-inch drain line, the 3-inch ABS or PVC line that's on a 2% slope that takes your waste out of the house is the most expensive part. We can run water lines, we can run power through a tree if we have to, but sewer on grade, even if you have to grind and pump the sewer, it's the most expensive part. So if you can find a house with a detached garage that has a bathroom, the basement has a bathroom, if there's a weird level of the house that has a bathroom, that's where the ADU goes, guys, okay, where the bathroom is, because that's the most expensive part. You can make a bedroom out of anything. You can put a 10-foot, one-wall galley kitchen with a kitchenette anywhere, literally on any wall, but the bathroom's hard. That's why I like to carve out. Basement conversions, those are great. We don't have a lot of basements in our area. Just make sure you have minimum 7-foot ceiling heights. Don't buy a house and you're gonna do a basement ADU that's under 7 feet. And then you need an egress window. Everybody knows what an egress window is. It's like 44 inches or less from the floor, 5.7 square feet of clear space to get out. Okay, we want to make sure that our tenants can get out if there's a problem. Infrastructure is where most people spend most money. We see a lot of new investors. I get a lot of calls from new investors. They're like, I found the most amazing ADU property. It's got a big flat lot with alley access. And I'm like, what year was the house built? They're like, 1932. And instantly I'm like, there's $40,000. You've got an Orangeburg sewer line. You need to take a sewer line all the way out to the road, new tap. You need to upgrade your electrical service. You're gonna have to upgrade the infrastructure before you do any infill. The cool thing about the ADU is it's what? Accessory, right? So we get to piggyback on the utilities of the primary house. That does us no good if the utilities and the infrastructure of the primary house is crap. Like, we don't tie new sewer lines into old sewer lines. Most cities will make you actually send a camera down and scope the old sewer line before they'll let you tie into it. So I pay market rate or more when I buy properties that have infrastructure. So I'm not looking for a good deal or to buy really deep. I'm looking for a fair to bad deal that has great infrastructure, because that's where all the costs are. How far is the power? Is the power on that transformer going to support 2 more 200 amp services because that's what I need to build out my plan. So have a plan, know your planning and zoning, know what you need for your infrastructure, and then go snipe properties. So many people are just like looking at price per square foot or looking at newest on the MLS or looking at what they call a good deal. Don't look for a good deal. Doesn't matter if it's been on the market for 1 day or 60 days or 90 days. None of those strategies mean anything. Know what you need to do to complete your strategy and then hunt just for those. And for this strategy, it's good infrastructure. That's the biggest one.
Make sure that you're going to be able to execute your plan.
Great question. You know, I've never actually had that question, and while you're talking, like I've been drinking too much mate. My mind is just working too fast. I'm like, God, just stop grinding and listen. I would say that the average contingencies that you'd have in a normal offer for like finance, for feasibility, usually feasibility, can I do additional units? But what caught me off guard and I was chewing on in my head was I've never backed out of a deal, ever. And it's because I know so clearly what I want, and I do my homework so hardcore up front that I've gotten lucky. I'm not just like, oh, I'm amazing. I've got the criteria so tight that I don't even waste my time with an offer unless I know like this is the one. I only take a few swings, maybe 2 or 3 swings a year, but they're big.
Ashland market, or do you play in other markets?
No, just in Ashland and Talent. I mean, with exception of one place I have, everything is like within 5 miles.
So you develop that expertise and
That's it. Only there. Like and it's been a curse. I should have expanded. In hindsight, you know, I would have done, had I known what the market was doing 10 years ago even, I would have way expanded. But no, I've just always stayed. Warren Buffett talks about this circle of competence, and as long as you stay in that circle of competence, you're okay. It's probably a self-limiting belief, but it's worked for me. Yeah, Ryan?
Like, you don't buy homes pre-1978 or something?
Yeah.
Or kind of arbitrary
Yeah,
number
yeah.
that you know has the good
Yeah.
utilities and things?
Yeah, when I first started, it was 1950s, and that was when I was 22 when I bought my first house. And I was still saying that a couple years ago, and I'm like, geez, I've grown since then. So, you know, 1979-ish, 1980, I look for PVC. So I want to see PVC or ABS. When it comes to a water line, I want to see copper or PEX. I don't want to see gray pipe. I don't want to see cast iron pipe. I don't want to see cast iron plumbing. I don't want to see asbestos shingles. I don't want to see Orangeburg pipe in the sewer. I don't want to see cement sewer. I don't want to see any of that stuff. I look for this. Like if I see I'm buying a duplex that was built in 1949, but the first thing I saw when I walked up to this immaculate yard, this guy's owned it for 30 years, is a brand new clean out. And I said, hey, when did you replace your sewer line? He said, oh, about 6 years ago. And I was like, yeah, of course you did. You know, it's because I see a nice PVC clean out cap. Anybody know what this is? Okay, this is a 4-inch 3034 PVC line, and this will, by code, has to be within 5 feet of the building, somewhere on the exterior of a house. And you can take that cap off, and you can router out the sewer line. But old houses don't have those usually, and if they do, they're cast iron and they're usually buried. But the first thing that we do, even a lot of times before we put an offer in, is we'll say, can we scope the sewer line? As to not waste your time or ours, can we scope the sewer line before we do an offer? So I know that the place has a good sewer line before I even put an offer in. And that's what most people back out on, is infrastructure. So that's one of the reasons why I don't worry about those contingencies. They're there, but we already have done all of our homework when we get to the point to offer, because we don't want to waste their time.
If you're going to be tearing stuff out,
Yes.
like, do you ever go that route first?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I just bought a house 3 months ago, and I did a quick video. Like, this is the only house I've ever bought that won't cash flow. I broke every rule I have to buy this house. It's an old house. It's got old infrastructure. But we did exactly that. We tore the whole sewer line out all the way to the street. The lot was already split, so we were going to have to put in a new sewer line. I knew I was going to be there with an excavator hooking up sewer lines. We did a new water line. We did new electrical. We put a new panel on that old house because we're bringing in all those services for the 2 brand new ones we're building next door. So yes, if it is part of the master plan and you know how to do it and you've done it before and you're getting a good deal, do it. But if you're not getting a good deal and you haven't done it before, don't do it. Like, this is the only thing in life I'm good at. I mean, seriously, ask my girlfriend. It's the only thing I'm good at. And it's still hard. Like, it's still super duper hard to do the full infrastructure upgrade. Basically, the tear it down to the studs, like value add of a house, there's just not enough upside unless you're not building more houses, in my opinion, or at least another house with an ADU, right? Okay, that's a great question though. Design, most people over-design and overbuild their ADUs. I talked about that. A lot of people want something extravagant. Not many times do people get a chance to build a custom house. So if you've got a nice average house in an average neighborhood, the average square foot price is $271, $258. Don't design an ADU in your backyard for $400 a square foot. Don't do big double Dutch roof pitches. Don't do big pop outs. We build rectangular ADUs, okay? It's a rectangle. If I pop out and I want to build an L, or I want to build an I, or I want to build a T footprint, just think in your mind it's not a square anymore. Each one of those pop outs, each 90-degree turn I make is a minimum of $5,000. We're not getting any more square footage. We're just doing more work, more labor, more trim, more gutter, more drainage, more cuts on the roof, more valleys, more everything for no more return. So don't over-design your ADU. That doesn't mean they can't be nice or have nice finishes or look, like Pinterest ready. The design principles, I'll bang through these real quick. We want big windows, big open spaces. So I like vaulted ceilings. The pictures don't really, I don't know, can anybody even see this? Does anybody care? Because I'll just turn this off if you guys can't see it. Vaulted ceilings, this is kind of like my bread and butter design. They all have a 16-foot tall ceiling. Light colors, one wall kitchen. Again, they're small, 524 square foot on average. We don't need to like crowd them with islands and big pop outs and weird things. Like keep it simple. Tenants want, again, what do tenants want? Location, privacy, and amenities. Give them no shared walls. Make sure it's in a nice area and give them stainless steel appliances and a dishwasher and an in-unit washer and dryer, and you're gonna dominate your competition. And self-manage or get a good manager that actually gives a shit about the tenant and treats them right, brings them flowers on Mother's Day, gives them Christmas gifts. It's little tiny things that make your tenants stay forever. I've been doing this for almost, well, not quite 30 years self-management, but 25. I've never had an eviction. I've never had a bad tenant. I've given back 100% of probably 95% of deposits. Like you just need to do a little bit more to not be a dirtbag landlord. Like just a little bit of effort goes a long way, guys. That's kind of my soapbox. Pocket doors I use because they save slide space. Yes, sir.
Is it a 12-12 pitch or a 12?
Yeah, that one's a 12. I bounce between an 8 and 12 and a 12-12. Yeah, I like the 12-12 with double dormers. I've been doing a lot of building in a historic district, and they have a minimum roof pitch of 8 and 12. So that's for every 12 inches out, it goes up 8 inches. It's called the rise and run of a roof. Just think like the higher the number, the lower. So a shed roof, like that roof right there, is like a 212, and this roof right here is a 412, and a 1212 is like a perfect 90. So just for people that don't understand what that means, like, that's totally normal. Good question. Yeah, great question. Another reason why I don't really like garage conversions, because you can't vault the ceiling, and they're usually a lower pitched roof that you can't put a loft in. Every unit that I build gets a loft. It's the kid in me that always wanted to like build the tree forts. And in my market, knowing my tenants intimately, what they want, what they need, what they drive, they all have outdoor gear. They're nurses and teachers, and they need an 8-foot long spot somewhere to put a kayak. So I started like building these lofts. It was like free space, and everybody put their kayak in it, and it just kind of, I accidentally came up with a cool thing. Just because I asked my tenants what they needed. Hey, I've never built this one before or lived in it. Like, how could it be better? And they all said these things, and then I just adapted those. And now everybody loves my design. It's like, it's not my design. I just asked the people living there, like, what I messed up on. So simple stuff.
That's not finished space, right?
No, and I love the air quotes, no. And it's not finished, so I can build up to 800 square feet, and these are 524 with a 200 square foot loft. So I'm not like not finishing the loft space, so because I'm up against my max gross habitable living area. I just do that so the tax bill's lower, and everybody's got their dirty secrets, right? Don't give the government any more money than you have to. That goes for local, state, and federal. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. If you built a 900 square footer with the 3.3 garage and you took the one bay of the garage and turned it into a family room, just have an inspection done. Yeah.
What if you use the whole garage space is just for the primary residence?
yeah, then I would always pull permits and do it legally. I just always would. I would say though, if you are the user of the non-conforming space, you're probably not gonna litigate yourself. Okay, if you got hurt and broke your ankle, are you gonna sue your husband? No, probably not. Maybe your ex-husband, but your tenant would be a different story. So yeah, there's no planning and zoning officials here, are there? Honestly, you have to out yourself. And there's no IRS agents. This is a real question. Does anybody here work for the IRS? Okay. There's people that said yes. I was speaking at the ADU Academy in Portland, Oregon last year, and I asked that question. And there was we were talking about house hacking and buying primary residences, and there was a official from Fannie or Freddie, one of the two, like a mortgage official that was there, and it was like everybody kind of got quiet for a second. All right. Anyways, nobody like that's here. So funding ADUs. How do we fund them? How do we fund ADUs? Come on. We're at a bar. Nobody's even yelling.
Money.
Somebody else's money. OPM. What else? How else do we finance an ADU? Equity. HELOC. How else? Come on. There's lots more ways.
Hard money.
Cash out. Hard money. Yeah. What's my favorite one? Nobody said it. Burr. That is my favorite one. I wasn't even thinking of that. Okay. Burr. What's that? No, I didn't think of that one. We don't do that where I'm from, but plasma, it'd be a lot of it. Just make sure you hydrate. Borrowing against employer-sponsored accounts. So most accounts will let you borrow up to 50%, 50 grand, pay yourself back interest, usually pretty low, 5 or 6% today, over a 60-month period back to yourself. The correct answer in my mind is any way you can. If it makes sense in your market, any way you can. If you're building an ADU in Des Moines, Iowa, it may not have the same return and it'll cost very similar to the ADU that you could build in Aspen that's going to rent for 5 times more. So it doesn't work in every market, but if you have a good design, you can build it affordably and drive a good return, the money should be really easy to find. The APR loan, applicable federal rate loan from a family member, is a good one. Hey, rich uncle, I've got this deal. It's going to be a 2% deal. I've got a contractor that's going to help me build it. Will you help me fund it and we'll split equity? Something like that. You can always find a way to get the money if you have the deal. And then when you're done, you can always refi. That was a lot easier to say 2 years ago. Even today, rates are pretty high. There's one company that I do support a little bit. They're called Renify, and they have the best product I've found outside of small local banks and credit unions where you already have a relationship. They have a second position, 20-year, that's at about 8.5% right now, which is a pretty good loan to build an ADU. It's a construction gap loan, long-term debt, 20 years, fixed rate, and then if you ever could refi out, if rates drop. I saw a Morningstar prediction. The Morningstar predicted average rent in 25 is going to be 4%. I don't believe it, but I hope they're right. Go ahead. It's 7.25 today for 740 and higher, top tier owner occ. So just for reference. Any lenders in here? You want to challenge me on that? Is that right? About right? It's close. Yeah.
So, have you run into any issues?
Yeah. Well, that's why I like the second, because if you weren't asleep the last 2 years, you're at 3.25 or lower. You should be at 2.75. 25% of all mortgages are under 3% right now. So if you have a $500,000 house at 2.75 and you need to build a $150,000 ADU, you're never going to refi the whole thing. That's why I like the second position, because it's 9%, but it's only on 6 figures. It's only on 100 grand or 125, as opposed to re-rolling the whole nut into it. So, but again, it's just math. Don't get scared away. And I'm teaching myself this. Like I'm learning this myself, that it's just a number. There's 100 line items on building a house, and the interest rate is one of those lines. So there's so many other ways we can make up the difference in the deal. Yes. Stronger real estate. Hey, real quick plug. So 2 years ago, I never had touched social media. I hated it. I was the guy that was always talking mad shit about social media. I started doing Instagram because somebody told me I had to do it. I've made more amazing relationships on Instagram. I've met more friends. I've had more opportunities. I've had so many people help me. I've maybe been able to help people. I met him on Instagram, and we kind of built a relationship, and he's introduced me to several other people. He's the reason I'm here because of social media. So it's just this weird little connection that I spent years and years hating, and God, I was so wrong. So with that, with no further ado, yeah. Wonderful question. No, and my model is very unique. I believe in really low leverage, so I don't refi mine when I'm done. And I don't want to talk too much about me. I want to answer all your questions, but I saved up a lot of money to build my first ADU, and then it took me a couple years to save up to build another one. I had a good job as a fireman. Me and Kyle are brothers in battle, and I had a good government job. I was a poster child for lending, and I was like a Dave Ramsey saver. So I just saved. I mean, it took me 4 years to save up for my first one. I built it with cash, and then I saved up for a couple years and built my second, and then the next year I built 2. But over the course of time, I just kept building them with cash. So I never have burned my money out. What I do is I pull HELOCs with a small local credit union that I have a relationship with, I'll get you, and they do drive-by appraisals, and they know me, and then I just have that equity. I do that drive-by appraisal to get a home equity line of credit right after I build it. Why? Because it's my primary residence at that time. And they know that when I move, it's still going to be my primary residence. I have a 10-year draw period. So to answer your question, I don't do that, but these are all the rules that apply. Yes, people call me every day with problems on their ADU, and it's this. They live in an area where the average square foot price of their house in their neighborhood is $258 a foot, and they build a $400 a foot ADU. So don't over-design and overbuild your ADU. Build it to your neighborhood. Another tip that I will always give people is if you're worried about it, come up with a set of plans. Always ask your city if they have free pre-approved plans, because that's the cheapest place to start. Take those plans to a local, trusted, good appraiser. How do you find a good appraiser? Start asking people here, hey, who's an appraiser that doesn't give bad appraisals? Or who's an appraisal that's honest? Who's an appraiser that'll call me back? Go to that appraiser. Don't say, will you give me an idea of how much, an opinion of value on these plans? You say, how much can I pay you for your time? Is $500 an hour good enough? Will you take $500 an hour to give me an opinion of value on this unbuilt ADU at this address? And you'll know exactly what it'll appraise for, or close. And then to add to that, I always take that value. So if I'm in a $258 a square foot neighborhood and I'm going to build a simple ADU in the backyard and my target is that same price, I'm going to tell myself I'm only getting 75% of that value back. So I go into it eyes wide open. I go into it with a simple design. I go into it with a really good crystal clear criteria, and we will never miss. A lot of people miss because they over-design, they overbuild, they go too big, and they build 2 or 3 finished levels above their neighborhood. But that's a great question. Yeah. One question I get often is, ADUs are great, Derek, but they don't really work in my market. Appraisers don't give them much value. Nobody can burn their money out. And I just scream. I'm like, oh my, there's kids here. I won't cuss again. But I'm like, oh, like all the more reason to buy an ADU. An ADU needs to be in your buy box at the top. Every realtor in town needs to know you guys as first-time buyers are looking for a house with an ADU or something that's easily converted to an ADU under 300 grand in this district or whatever it is. I mean, you can find your criteria in 3 minutes and tell everybody. It should be underneath your email. You should be texting every realtor in town. Tell everybody here what you're looking for. If it happens to be an ADU because the appraisers in your market don't like them and don't value them, all the more reason to buy one. I've been building ADUs since 1996. My favorite strategy to build an ADU today is to buy one that somebody already built. Okay, because I can show up to the closing table with 30-year fixed rate debt and I'm done. I don't have to work dark to dark.
Do SDCs for an ADU?
Yeah. So yes, they do. SDC is a system development charge, basically pay to play. So I'm building 2 ADUs right now. I left City Hall the other day. I made a quick little video about how they charged me $32,000 just to get started. It's all part of the price. It's all baked in. Up north, Portland has a really good policy where they waive SDCs. Medford, Oregon, our sister city, has a program if you sign a 10-year silent second that you won't use it for a short-term rental, that they'll waive the SDCs. But yes, we pay fees. We pay SDCs. You build them into your price. Lawrence.
From what he told me, he just did it yesterday.
Yeah, they had, good point. They had a 100% waiver. The Housing Coalition paid 50% and the city fund paid 50%, and it ran out on July 1st.
Oh, okay.
So if you did it yesterday, you snooze, you lose. Just like the rent raises. I mean, you get them in before July or you're sorry, 10%. Good question though. Yeah, do you have experience with, are the fees up here astronomical?
Yeah, Corvallis has got a reputation for really high SDCs.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I joined the local planning commission in my city because I was complaining so much, and finally they're like, you complain a lot, there's a vacancy, do you want to work? And I'm like, and I ended up doing it. But I lobbied every meeting for almost, well, close to 4 years, and we couldn't waive them. No, they need their money. They need their money. And after a while, as a developer, you just get used to paying. It's just like, oh, whatever. I just go to open public forums. I go to city council meetings, and I speak on non-agenda items, and I just say, hey, every bleeding heart in here, all your constituents vote you in for affordable housing. That's what everybody's talking about. And the policies that you're driving today are not affordable, and they're adding cost. This is going to be passed on to my client, who's a tenant, and I just want everybody in here to know that. And so they need to have some responsibility, like that they're driving, that rent should be $1,100 and they're $1,350 because of all these fees. So we just added a construction excise tax, which is a few $1,000s on every build, and I audited our city and they couldn't tell me where it was going. So it's like, don't ask too many questions. You like wake up in a hole in the desert. Okay, go ahead. You can cut that part out, dude.
What's the LTV on the RENFI loan?
So loan to value, LTV, what's the LTV? They'll loan up to 110% of finished value of property in ADU. Yeah.
So you've got a house, and they'll give you.
Yeah, you've got to have some equity in the house, but they'll give you, if you have equity in the house, they'll give you up to 110% of overall after build value of both. So you can do a little quick math. I'm not going to bore everybody, but if you have a $500,000 house that you owe $400 on, you're going to build a $100,000 ADU. You know, you'd have to have, you know, an ARV of 630-ish or whatever to pull it off. They have a good product. They actually do. But I always say start at your small local bank and credit union, places that know your name, places you've been banking since high school. They all have products. Like, they're all scrambling too. Liquidity is coming back slowly, I think, at least locally in my market. They only make money by giving you debt and charging you interest. And what better way than saying, hey, I can build this thing for $100,000 that'll rent for, you know, $2,000 a month. That's a pretty good return. I mean, you think the bank would rather make interest on that or like Kyle's boat? I mean, come on. Like, can people live in a boat? Not forever. As long as I've been around, people have always liked to live indoors and they need a place to put their stuff. Banks know that. They'll probably lend on your project. If you're not good, you've never built one, maybe he's built a few. Partner with him. Like, get creative. If they tell you no, go ask another bank. Like, we're smarter than most. Are there any bankers here? Like, we're not smarter. Like, I'm definitely not smarter, but we're more creative than bankers. Like, get creative, guys and girls. Really.
Question.
Yeah.
Is that the strategy? And what does that cost, or what does that cost?
That's an amazing question. You guys are the best group I've probably talked to in a couple of years. Honestly, I'm not just saying that. These are the best questions I've had. Very engaging. This is what I do. It's different in every market. We find a property that has an illegal ADU. It doesn't have a C of O, a certificate of occupancy, for the acronym challenged in here. That's me too. I call my local city building official and I say, I would like to schedule a special inspection. They're like $325. I would meet, if I was not a builder, I would meet a planning official with my contractor at the site, and we would walk through the building with the owner's permission. A lot of times you need the owner's signature on a building permit. It's a permit that you have to get for a special inspection, and you walk through with the building official and say, hey, what do we need to bring this up to code? There's a housing shortage. You know, the mayor and the council, your boss, they love these. I've already talked to them. They'd love to see it come on market as a real unit. Let's get this legal. How do I play inside the lines? And you walk through with the official and they say, well, you need a GFI here. You don't have arc fault interrupters in the bedrooms. You know, you need to have your CO and smoke detectors linked, and they have to also be tied in AC, not just battery now. And they give you a list of things you need to do to bring that up to compliance for life safety code and building code. And then you actually have a blueprint of what you have to do. And then you go back, yes, ma'am. She's saying no. She's saying, no, you don't.
I dealt with this one time, and it turned out that the seller, I was the realtor, sorry.
Oh, no. Are you the realtor I've been picking on?
That they'd actually built this thing over one of the city sewer lines.
Yeah, they built it on an easement.
And so
Yeah.
the whole thing had to be dismantled.
Oh, goodness. That's a horror story.
Nazi
That,
city officials here. So.
that's a horror story. That brings up another good point. So every realtor is saying now on every listing, ADU potential in Oregon, every single family house in a single-family neighborhood in a city limit above 10,000 people has to allow at least one ADU by right over the counter, period. Usually expedited. That doesn't mean that you can meet the setbacks or the building height or the parking requirements or that there's not a city storm drain right through your property. But to her point, if you're a realtor, you don't ever advertise a house until you call the city and say, is there a C of O on this place? If you're a buyer, or if you went there with my direction and got a special inspection, that stickler inspector would have said, hey, I want to see inspection holes. I want to see a plot plan that shows that you meet zoning code for setbacks and there's no easement under here. The building official gets all that responsibility when you pay them for that special inspection. So if that in that case, if I would have been your agent, or if I would have been the buyer's land use planning agent, I would have called the building official. The building official would have met us there, and he would have said, hey, you're going to have to cut open all this stuff. You're going to have to verify that there's no easements. And we would have known, and we would have backed out of the deal. Or better yet, we would have just like completely just thrashed you on price, or walked away. Like those are hard. Like those ones are, I know, and it's an easy mistake to make. I know so many realtors that are good realtors with good people, and they miss these little things. So be careful. I always tell people that the lender's trying to help you, title's trying to help you, the realtors are the kindest people, they love you, they're trying to help you. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to take better care of your money than you. And if anything fails, it's not like, oh, the realtor messed up, or it's like extreme ownership. Not like I'm Jocko up here, but like you have to take huge accountability when you're dealing with your own money and trying to build wealth. I mean, it's a risky game, like big mistakes. Yeah, that's a good one, good question. That's all the slides. I banged through the last few. I was going to talk about construction loans, but nobody cares. I want to take specific questions, like how can I help you? Like how do we get your garage conversion permitted? Like what do we need to do?
It's in the floodplain. So that was but cottage clusters.
Okay.
About that.
That's going to go deep. I saw two hands first before I get into cottages. Go ahead.
Can you talk about construction loans? Because we actually just asked about that to our lender, and he was kind of.
Okay. I'd like to just reroute your phrase a little bit with, we're going to talk to our lenders, plural. Like we all have a lender. Like I have a lender who's my best friend in the lending space. I refer him to all my friends. But that doesn't mean that he's like, it's a one-on-one relationship forever, especially in construction. You got to call lots of lenders. Construction loans are hard. I like a gap in a construction loan product. Umpqua in our state has a great one, and you can come in with a construction loan at a pretty low rate, maybe a half a point higher than best owner-occ rate, and then you have construction drop period for 12 to 18 months, and then it converts to a 30-year fixed. But the negative is if you're building a $500,000 dream house or house ADU, whatever it is, you pull that up front the day you start building. So you're paying a mortgage until you move in. Construction loans are not created equally. A lot of people will take a higher, 3 or 4 point higher, maybe a 10 or 12%, not hard money, but gap coverage construction loan that's good for a year. And then when they're done, they put long range debt on it. Right now with Fed talk, I think we'll probably pause at the next meeting, but I still think we're going to go higher for longer. So I don't want to build a house and be like, oh, in a year I'll long-term out this debt with something long-term, get out of the gap. I would be setting, if I could afford it, I would be setting my stake right now with a gap to permanent finance construction loan. Umpqua, there's a girl, Jen, in Eugene, who I dealt with from Southern Oregon, who was the best. Jen at the Eugene Umpqua is like, she's known in the state. I asked who's the best in the state at construction loans, period. And I was going to develop a cottage cluster with her loan, and it didn't work for me. It was like, it was too much. I ended up just using equity and cash. But that's my best guess. That's why we're here, folks. I mean, I know Kyle's building a house right now. Like, he probably called a bunch of people. I don't know how he's financing it all the way, but talk to other people. Who in here has had a construction loan? Okay, keep coming back. Who in here has tried? Who in here is a lender that's done construction loans? Just ask. Tell everybody what you're looking for. I mean, at our meetings, at the end, we make sure that before you leave, you tell everybody like what you offer and what you want. Like, hey, this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm looking for. So they need a construction loan person. Somebody in here knows like the perfect person here, I'm sure. So use the network. Anything else before we go clusters? Go ahead. Yeah, so order of operations is our question, and this is for building a new ADU or for buying a house or for what? For building a new ADU, order of operations. Always, always, always. Plan, email, and go into the local planning and zoning office, build a relationship. Can I build this ADU at ABC Adams Street? So before you do anything, can you even build an ADU? Is there not, make sure there's not a sewer easement underneath it. Make sure that you can meet the 10-foot side setback, or make sure that you're not right next to EFU and you can't build a structure within 250 feet. There's all these weird little things. So can I do it? The next thing you're gonna need to find out is, what is my buildable area? After you find out your buildable area, you need to find a plan set that will fit there. I always start with, does my city have free plans that they give us? In my city, they didn't for years. It took us 2 years. We designed 2 sets of plans. Took 2 years for the city to take them for free from me and approve them and give them away for free. 2 years, the bureaucracy. Oh, I'm gonna like pull my hair out. So I'll get to you, sir, I promise. So can I build an ADU at my property or the property I'm looking to buy? What's my buildable area? That way I know how big of an area I can build. So now I know my square foot, my footprint, and then I find a set of plans, and then those plans go to the building department, and can I build them? And then from there you shop it around and hit the ground running. Yeah. If you're gonna find a builder, if you're gonna look for a builder, doesn't matter if they've done 500 bathroom remodels, it doesn't matter if they're J.R. Horton, it doesn't matter, like, who's built an ADU in your area that has the inspectors on speed dial. I have every inspector in my county on my phone. I could call them right now at dinner and be like, dude, I need a green tag, and they'd ignore my call. But like, I have their number. Like, that's the point. Like, they would see it's me and they would silence me, but like, I have their number. So have a contractor that knows your bureaucracy and knows the decision makers. Uncles are cool, friends are cool, DIY, yeah, that's me. Those are cool too. But if you want to do this as a business, find somebody that's done what you want to do and pay them going rate to do it. Mm-hmm. You know, I make sure I lock up financing once I know my building plan is approved. So you might have to fork over, you know, a couple $1,000s for plan review and city fees, but you don't have to really pay until you pick up your plan. So if there's SDCs, you don't have to pay those until you actually go pick up your approved plan. So a lot of people, they spend a couple $1,000s, do some planning, hire a drafts person. Don't hire an architect unless you have to. Hire a drafts person. And then they get all the way through the process, a couple renditions, the city calls them and says, you're finally approved after a year and it's gonna be $25,000, come pick them up. And that's the end of their ADU dream. So you don't really need to get financing until you're ready to go. But obviously, have a plan, I don't wanna burn you guys out, man. That's been about 50 minutes. How am I doing on time, Ryan? You're doing awesome. Okay. Okay, go ahead. Cottage, sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's really key. So yeah, I love his acronyms. What do you do for a living?
Real estate.
Okay, how long have you been doing it?
Over 30 years.
Are you good at it?
No. Every time I get surprised.
Okay, he is good at it, okay? He's been doing it for a long time. I'd be talking to him. I'm gonna be talking to him after the meeting. So the DRT, we call them pre-application conferences in our market. It's a great point. A lot of cities and municipalities and counties have a process where you can come in and do a kind of a plan review roundtable with the stakeholders, and you can get a good idea. That's usually for stuff like cottage clusters or type 2, 3, and 4 planning reviews. So if you're going to do a subdivision, a cottage cluster, multiple lot division over 3, ADUs are type 1 by law. So we don't have any of this legislation. We don't have to do that stuff, but we can request them. That's a really good point. So get to know the decision makers, build the relationships. You know, that's the biggest step that most people miss. Who in here has a, show of hands, who in here has a realtor in their phone? Okay, who in here has a lender on speed dial? Okay, who in here has a handyman? Okay, who in here honestly has a number in their phone for a professional land use planner? Like the few like people that have been doing it a long time. What do you do?
Real estate development.
Okay, okay, and you have a good land use planner?
Yeah,
And
MSS and Corrales.
okay, There you go. Like if you're looking to develop here, like he's got a connection. That's the network. That's a really important person to know. I'm not a certified land use planner, but that's really what I do. It's the rule book of how we make money in real estate, and very few people know anything about it or know anybody that does it. So meet those people, invite those people to speak. That's who you need. Like get a planner in here. If you can get a city official in here to speak, like that's like we're all on the same team, guys. It's collaboration, not competition. If you could get the planning director to come speak at your meetup, it would be amazing. Like they are paid. We go in there and they rough us up like we're bothering them or like we're asking stupid questions. But honestly, they're paid by a tax base to work for us and help us develop, to help us pull permits on our flips, to help us build our dream house, to help us convert our garage in the floodplain, whatever it is. Like they work for us. So, and there are some strategies to that, just so you know. And yeah. Yeah. Any other questions before I'll talk briefly about cottage clusters?
Storage containers, like those type of things too, like strategies that have worked well for people or not or worked.
Dude, you guys have all the best questions, man. No, I haven't. And eventually somebody's going to nail it. They will, but the regulations have not caught up. So the industry, the tech industry is pulling out of Uber to go to ThatADUGuy. They're building Boxable. There's all these big investments that are coming into these modular units. Well, those are all the like speedboats, and then you have like local municipalities and the International Code Council that's this huge battleship, and they just move really slow. So unless you have, and I would be looking for this, unless you have RV park zoning or campground zoning, you're probably not going to build a tiny house village. You're probably not going to build a dome village. You're probably not going to stack up 10 boxables or shipping containers or cedar huts or all these cool little A-frames we're seeing all over our Instagram feed. You're not going to get them. You're just not, unless you have campground or RV park zoning, with the exception of manufactured homes that have the federal HUD stamp. So this is what blows me away, and this is why I like Wolf Industries, and I was going to do a cottage cluster with all of his units, because I would do the infrastructure, build the foundations, and then he would crane them all in, and they'd be done in like a week. The problem is all these manufactured homes, they look the same. It's a rectangle with a 412 roof. Why doesn't somebody just build one 2 pieces? You can only go down the road with 13.5 feet without a permit. Why don't they just build the rectangle and then build like a big pitched roof and bring it to you in 2 pieces so it doesn't look like a manufactured home? Like somebody's going to nail it. But if it doesn't have the HUD stamp, it has to go through the process locally. If it's a manufactured house, legit, with a HUD stamp, the cities can't say anything. So this is what I suggest you do. If you find a cool product, a Boxable, a shed container, Shed Guys, Home Depot, $40,000 kit. I get calls for all these. Call that company, whatever it is, and ask them for blueprints. Send those blueprints to your city zoning department and your city planning department and say, what would it take to get these permitted at my address? And just be surprised if they even respond with a laugh emoji. Like that's what it takes. Like they're gonna have to approve it, and they don't understand it. They don't see it before. They're not gonna approve it in very, very few cases. So that's the negative. Somebody will figure it out. Eventually, we're gonna be building houses out of concrete with robots right out there, and nobody will care. But right now, planning and zoning and the bureaucracy and the process of public comment, public opinion are keeping that at bay. Okay. Cottage clusters, what do we have for questions on those? There's some really cool stuff. Senate Bill 456. We can do fee simple lot partitions with detached duplexes. So if you have a house, you build an ADU, plan it so it can be split. We are not making any more low density development land ever. We're only getting more medium and high density. We're not making more low density in cities. It might swing, the pendulum might swing, but right now everything's going to higher densities, more infill housing. Infill housing, duplex, triplex, quadplex. An ADU doesn't count under the state law as infill housing, but if you have a detached ADU and you do a change of use to a detached duplex, you can convert that to a fee simple lot partition. What that means is if you have a regular house and you have a 1/4 acre lot with alley access and you want to build an ADU, don't build a duplex, because if you do the duplex, you might have to do street improvements, curb and gutter, street trees, sidewalks, all that stuff, parking. If you build an ADU, you don't need any of that stuff, but you get done, and then you can do a fee simple lot partition and sell that off. So if you have a $500,000 house, you build a 150 ADU, theoretically, what's it worth? $650. Okay, if you can fee simple partition that off, now you have a $400,000 house and a $350,000 house. And it's the same exact equation. You might have paid $5,000 for surveying and recording, fees like that. So that's the main advantage I see of a cluster. A cluster development is usually 3 or more units that can either be on individual lots or on one big parent lot. I think the coolest new trend in real estate is going to be a cottage cluster with, this is like my holy grail secret, cottage cluster with manufactured home on it. It's like the cheat code to a mini manufactured home park. And they can't deny it. They can't direct you to the manufactured code zone because state law says that a manufactured house is a dwelling. So a cottage cluster is really, really a cool thing. The subdivision code, which is like a cottage cluster with bigger houses, is like that thick. Most cottage cluster ordinances in this state, they were written by one lady. She's a consultant up north, and she wrote the language that a lot of cities are adopting, and it's like 12 pages and pretty cool. So when I say become an expert in your local planning and zoning code, like go to your city, go to departments, go to planning and zoning, go to the municipal zoning code, go to the search bar, type in ADU, type in cottage cluster, type in manufactured home park if that's what you're into, and then pull up the code and read it. Nobody does that, and that's how we can kill it. Like if you hear nothing else from me, just become an expert in your local planning and zoning code, and it's really a lot easier than it sounds.
How do you sell that someday, though?
What's that?
If you do a cottage cluster, how do you sell that someday? You just not worry about it because it's 30 years down the line.
If you do a cottage cluster, there's 2 options. One option is to keep all of them. You could say there's 6 small units on one lot. The minimum lot size in that zone is 8,000 feet, but if you do a cluster, the minimum lot zone is 2,000 feet. So you could have 6 of them on one lot. That would be harder to sell. Okay, if I was doing them on individual lots, I would do clusters of 4, because 5 or more, we need commercial financing. It's a lot harder. Lending's different. It's based on cap rate. But what a lot of people are doing, developers that are like to buy boats and new trucks, are just doing 2,000 square foot lots, and they're selling the lots. So they're the most affordable house around, but there's a boutique premium. So you have these 2,000 square foot lots with these 1,200 square foot less. Usually they're about 1,000 square feet, and the average price is $450, and these are selling for $400. So they're the cheapest thing in town, and they're brand new, but they're on a postage stamp lot, and they're small. But that's what's selling. That's what everybody in my market is buying right now. Everybody doing cottage clusters or small lots with small houses are killing it. I've never sold a house. That's not my model to sell. But if I was wanting to make money to roll into buying longer term cash producing assets that will build wealth, I would start, that's one of the places I would look at starting. Yeah, I don't want to talk anymore unless there's any burning questions. I will be here. I'm going to drive back tonight, but I'll be here until every question's answered. You can call me, ThatADUGuy.com. The number at the top of the screen rings to my cell phone. You can shoot me a DM. I'm most active on Instagram. I'm doing a 90-day ADU build challenge. We're building 2 ADUs real time, side by side in 90 days for $100 a square foot is my goal. We're going to be really close. They're almost done. I do a video. I release it every week on YouTube. You can follow me there. I give away all my trade secrets all the time. I talk people out of my consulting business. Just watch this stuff for free. I don't like it feels like work. I feel like I'm at the firehouse again. Like if somebody books a call on my calendar, I'm like, oh God, that feels like work. But if you do need direct access to me, you can book a paid call with me. But just call me or email me if I missed something that you wanted to go deeper into, or hit me up after. I know that being here tonight was a no to a lot of other stuff, so I really appreciate your time. Our friends are out like watching fights and partying and like polishing their rims, and like we're here trying to get better. Okay, so yay to us. Thanks everybody for coming out. That's it.
Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it.
I always forget these. I'm gonna put them on first next time. I'm a visual learner. Okay, my IQ is like room temperature on a good day. So these are your visual reminder to look at properties a little bit differently. Okay, and I've joked about these for years. These are my ADU goggles. So I'm not looking for good deals. I'm not looking for days on market. I'm looking for good infrastructure. I'm looking for houses that I can chop up and to make into multiple houses. I'm looking for lots that are 2 or 3 times the minimum lot size in that zone. So just have a different set of glasses. This is the visual to look at real estate different than our competition so we can beat them, okay? ADU goggles, get a pair. Oh, nice.